afternoon session. We had a great time this morning listening to keynote speeches and certainly panel discussions. And we're going to have some fun also in the afternoon. Let's start with a discussion about facts and fiction. Wow. About facts. Journalists love facts more than we do, probably. And also, you see not only journalists, but also literature figures. For example, Mark Twain has said, "Know little facts, please, before you distort them." And E.B. White also talked something about facts, said, "Prejudice is a good time saver. Only little facts, you've already got a lot of opinions." But I guess to unveil the mystery about facts versus fiction, we have here our friend John Pullman, who is the global head of video and pictures at Reuters, to help us more. John?
Thank you very much.
Facts sometimes more fascinating than fiction these days.
Okay, I will try and stick to the facts during my presentation.
Go ahead. Give him applause. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you'll forgive me trying to juggle here. There's no podium this afternoon, so I have a microphone, a clicker, and some notes. So let me find my first page. So I'd like to start by thanking CGTN and CCTV Plus for inviting me here. It's the second time I've been to this event, so thank you very much. I'm here to talk about trust, fact versus fiction, editorial values in the internet age, and why it's so important. I'm going to tell you about some of the steps we take at Reuters to ensure the journalism we produce is accurate, fair, honest, and balanced, and why it's more important today than ever that we do that. So let me start by outlining Reuters values. Reuters provides society with the news it needs to be free, prosperous, and informed. We strive to preserve independence, integrity, and freedom from bias in the gathering and dissemination of information and news. Now, there are a number of important words in that mission statement. I've highlighted these: independence, integrity, and freedom from bias. And here they are, I hope, in Mandarin for you. Translated by a colleague, I hope they're correct. So why is this so important today? Well, take a look at this chart. So the media has a problem with our audience. The audience doesn't trust us as much as they used to. So around the world, 33% of the audience say they can't rely on the news. These are figures compiled by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism. As you can see, trust is at its greatest in Finland, here on the left, and at its lowest in Korea, that's South Korea, on the right. Those figures are disappointing, and they're going down. Now, there are many causes. One of them is the rise of social media. Today, it's easy for anyone to be a publisher, and they can produce content which looks like news. They can pretend it's news, but we know it isn't news. But have we done enough ourselves? What can we do to improve the relationship with our audiences? So at Reuters, we have some guidelines to maintain the relationship of trust. We aim to be fast and accurate. We aim to report with an open mind, always checking our facts, getting fair comment, not taking sides. We offer substance over flash. Now that can be difficult because the truth can sometimes be more boring than fiction, but it's important. We foster transparency in our news, transparency in our processes. Every story we publish has a link on the bottom which takes you back to our trust principles. Those are the principles which govern all our journalism. And we produce a feature called Backstory, which lets the light in on our journalistic process. We publish 2 or 3 a week, and they explain how we got a story. It's something we've initiated over the last couple of years, As the problem of trust has grown, we decided to show people how we produce the news. And our aim is to be useful. We believe reliable news fosters and fuels better decision-making. So let me give you an idea of the scale of Reuters. We have 2,500 journalists working in 200 locations around the world. Every year we publish 2.5 million text stories, 700,000 pictures, and over 100,000 pieces of video. So it's important that all our journalists understand the principles behind our work. They're drummed into people when they arrive in the company, and they're regularly repeated. We all go through refresher courses. It is fundamental to what we do. So, in summary, our journalists approach each story with the following goals. They aim to be first. They aim to be accurate. They aim to show things as they are, to use trusted sources, all with the goal of encouraging our readers and viewers to adopt the attitude, if it's from Reuters, it's real. Now, one area of particular concern is what's called user-generated content. That's video and pictures and information provided by the general public. It's important that all journalistic organizations understand the importance of UGC. 60% of the world will own a smartphone by 2022. Most of those will be equipped with HD cameras. That means most breaking news events will be filmed first by a member of the public, long before anybody from Reuters, CCTV, AP, or any other news organization can get there. That video will have been shot by the public and probably posted onto a social media network. We will all have to spend more time scouring those networks looking for newsworthy content. But the risks are serious. We have to ask ourselves, is the image accurate? Does it describe a real event? And how can we be sure it's not a hoax? You see, because we all want to be first, the risks of getting it wrong are increasing. And if we do, it could be disastrous for our news organization. There are fact checkers out there looking at everything we do, trying to expose hoaxes, mistakes. It would damage our brand, it would damage our reputation. And for a news agency like CCTV or like Reuters or like AP, we don't just publish on our own platforms, we distribute to thousands of other news organizations around the world, amplifying the risk when we get it wrong. So it's our duty to do everything we can to get it right. When we find a piece of UGC that we're interested in, here are the questions we ask. Can the person who provided the content demonstrate that they took the picture or filmed the video? Can we confirm where it was taken, when it was filmed? Have they posted other content from the same location? Let's look at their social media history. Let's see if they have a track record that we can trust. And do we know why they've posted it? Have they got an agenda? It's important to understand all of that before we step into the decision of, yes, we will publish this. Here's an example. I'll let the video play for a second. This is from Syria from last year. Now this video purportedly shows Russian helicopters in action over rebel-held territory in Syria. That's how it was posted, and if genuine, it will be very newsworthy.
وين بدنا ننفذ الصواريخ؟ نزلت على الارض. شفت انا هون مرة قلت له مفكر عم نزح هون كانت هون نزلت هون. والله اجت قريبه. طلع عندي ليك تعال عندي بس دقيقه خيي. يا خيي لا يا زي ما ده صاروخ توها. ايه قربوا. الله اكبر.
So here are the questions we had to ask ourselves. Did we know the source of the video? And the answer is yes, we did. It's an organization we dealt with before. They had a good track record. Could we confirm where the footage was shot? Could we identify the military hardware? We saw those helicopters, but is there more to it? And could we stand up to claim that that was a Russian helicopter? So let me talk you through the process. We used an online mapping tool on the left to add to the terrain and check that it really was the location that was being described. We looked at a silhouette of the helicopter and matched it with that picture there of a Russian Hind helicopter and took it to an expert there from a military institute who confirmed, yes, it was a Hind helicopter. But that's not the end of the story, because you see, both the Syrian and Russian air forces use Hind helicopters. So was that really a Russian helicopter, or could it be the Syrian Air Force? So we asked Mr. Dempsey, could you study it for us? Here's what he told us. He said that the Russian version of that helicopter has guns on the side of the aircraft, whereas the Syrian aircraft only has guns on the nose or the chin of the helicopter. Studying that, he could see that the cannons were being fired from the side. He also confirmed that Syrian aircraft rarely operate that low to the ground and not in pairs. So he was confident that these were Russian helicopters. That made it a very newsworthy piece of video. Now, we use similar processes for most of the UGC that we pick up. Here are some of the tools we use. We use geolocation, which tells us where was the video posted from. We use reverse image search. You can use that to see, has an image been posted before? That allows you to see, is someone picking up some old imagery and presenting it as new? Are you being hoaxed? You can use what's called EXIF data from cameras. That tells you, for still pictures, where it was taken, when it was taken. We can use mapping tools, which allow us to look for landmarks and locate them on a map and confirm that the location is genuine. All these tools and more are now part of the armory of journalists at Reuters and at many other news organizations. And as you can see, it's important that we work hard to maintain trust with our audiences. If we get it right, if we provide important, valuable news to them, they'll trust us and our business will thrive. I hope you found it useful. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, John. I could tell the passion you have for every story you just talked about. One can see the lights in your eyes when you're talking about these stories, and to verify the sources, no matter which age of media we are in, the facts are always the most important thing. Thank you once again. And talking about the facts, we're probably already graduating from facts versus fiction. We're going to go to another topic, which is interesting related, post-truth age. That's the media stand the ground under pressure of TRP circulation and website hits. While our colleagues are getting the stage ready, I would like to invite to the stage not only the moderator, but also the panelists for this wonderful discussion. I would like to introduce, with honor, Ms. Liu Xin, host of The Point with Liu Xin on CGTN, to be the moderator, please. And also joining her, we will have the panelist, Ms. Zhang Shilei, Deputy Director of CGTN Digital, and Mr. Lu Ningsi, Editor-in-Chief of Phoenix Satellite Television, and also Mr. Shan Chengbiao, General Manager of Huanqiu.com, Mr. Jessica Hua, the Asian Voices Executive Editor of Huffington Post. Last but certainly not least, Mr. Jamie Ho, Chief Editor of Digital News at Channel News Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, you are invited to come up to the stage. 有请. So you are the faces and the voices of the post-truth age. Wow, we're going to hear how that works. Please have a seat. Liu Xin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tian Wei, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you very much for staying on and watch this panel. It's my great pleasure. My name is Liu Xin. I'm host of The Point on CGTN. And it's really a fascinating topic because every day in my own program, I'm faced with this daunting challenge of telling what is true, what is not. And I have to tell that to the audience, guess the kind of pressure I'm faced with. But I'm very happy that we have this distinguished panel to help us with some of the tools and their experiences maybe on how to survive and excel in this post-truth age. And by the way, this is going to be simultaneously translated from English to Chinese or from Chinese to English. So for those of you who are not adequately bilingual, you might want to reach out to your simultaneous interpreter machine there. But again, this is also going to be live streamed on the social media platforms of CGTN, such as on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Chinese Weibo, I guess. Yeah, so I think we should make it very easy to understand and very simple for the general audience to understand because it's something that concerns them on a daily basis. So without much ado, let's start this panel discussion. Let me first have a very brief introduction to all our panelists here. First, Zhang Shilei, as Tian Wei mentioned, Deputy Director of CGTN Digital, an award-winning journalist with over 20 years of experience in news reporting. She is now responsible for CGTN's global digital business, including editorial content, emerging platforms, product and technology development, branding, business development, and partnerships. Do you have time to sleep? Under her leadership, CGTN social media platforms have accumulated over 68 million followers from over 200 countries and regions. Facebook also singled out CGTN's page as a Facebook Outstanding News Media page in 2016. So looking forward to your insights. Next to her, Mr. Lu Ningsi, Editor-in-Chief of Phoenix Satellite Television. He's a broadcast journalist, a TV and documentary presenter and producer, editor, writer, academic in Sino-Russian relations, and translator of Russian literature, most notably for the works of Nobel laureate Svetlana Alexievich, who is a 2015 Nobel Prize winner for literature. Do you have time to sleep too? And he's currently director of news and editor-in-chief of Phoenix Info News Channel and deputy head of the station. He also hosts one of the channel's most influential news commentary program called Chief Editor's Time, 总编辑时间. He's also routinely appearing on numerous segments on the channel as a commentator and analyst. So welcome again to the show. Next to Mr. Lu is Shan Chengbiao. He is general manager of Huanqiu.com. He was a former vice editor-in-chief of People's Daily Online and director of Overseas Communication Department, among other titles. Prior, for being part of the People's Daily Online, Mr. Shan had served as a translator and editor at the International Liaison Department of China Federation of Literary and Art Circles. Welcome. Next to Mr. Shan is Jessica Preuss, who is executive editor of Asian Voices of Huffington Post. Previously, she worked for NPR and Observer Media Group. She's also a tutor for City Soccer Monitoring Group in New York. Welcome to the panel. And last but not least, Mr. Jamie Ho, who is Chief Editor of Digital News of Channel News Asia. He joined MediaCorp in August 2013 as Associate Editor, Singapore Desk, after 16 years in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Singapore. 1 year later, he moved on to become Deputy Chief Editor of Radio News. Another year later, he also took on the post of Deputy Chief Editor of International News at Channel News Asia. He now oversees all digital news on channelnewsasia.com and its various social media platforms in addition to radio news. Welcome. Is all the information true that I have provided? Relatively? not comprehensive, but simple enough, I guess. So, I don't think we need any more introduction to this topic. This is indeed a very important topic, and especially given the recent events we have seen on the Chinese social media, for instance, about child abuse scandal, about the eviction of so-called low-end population laborers in China. Emotion seems to have taken over rationality when we read the news, when we comment on news, but at what cost, and what are we giving up in exchange for hits, for traffic? Shilei, let me give this first question to you as the head of the digital team of CGTN. Is the post-truth factor the biggest challenge for you?
Sure. My answer would be yes or no. I want to share it with three aspects. First, CGTN Digital on the app side and also in the terms of website, we are very traditional newsroom. And we're based on three principles. One is factual, balanced, and also responsible. So in response to the cases you raise up for the suburbs happening, and we think that there are two different realities we have to face. Once the government should shoulder the responsibility to take care of the security of the suburbs, that there are a lot of, we say, the hidden security issues there. But also, on the other hand, we have to be very human to care about the people in the winter and when they go out. So there are discussions socially. But I think for journalists, we're not here to judge. We're here to closer to the facts. And for the social media side, we care more about the traffic. I'm sorry to say that, but when we check on the back ends, for the past 3 years, for social media, especially on Facebook, the top 20 most viewed stories and videos, over 60% are focused on not real news. The people here, we think they are socially popular, with like panda videos, tiger videos, car crash, and social hot topics. And we find out that there are one thing is we call it unconscious bias. That I can give one example. It's really surprising me is that there's one report by BBC, our counterpart, about the Chinese people eat dog meat. But actually in China, there are over, I read an article about that, it's over 400 million people is dog lovers in China. So when you come to see the facts on social media, so you have to consider three ways. When the data comes bigger enough, maybe the facts will become totally the opposite. So I think everybody's here know what I mean, so I don't need to go to. So for the social media side, I think story turns a page. We can discuss more about that. Also on the third part, my job involved mostly, for 1/3 of my job is product management. So for the product, as you know, may not know that CGTN has over 50 developers to develop a website and also the apps. And the consumer, I will see the principle of our website and apps. So one sentence, the consumer will call the shots. I'll explain more later. I have to hand it to you.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Very, very interesting points you have raised there. I hope we'll have enough time to discuss this. But without much ado, Mr. Liu, how big of a challenge is it for you to provide true information, or as true as you can in this age?
May I allow to tell the Chinese story in Chinese?
Absolutely.
请允许我说中文。
Please allow me to
这
speak
个
in
凤凰卫视呢
Phoenix
是
TV.
有几个中文的频道，
Runs several
但是呢，
Chinese
我们做很
programs.
多关于国际新闻。
We also provide
我们希望呢，凤凰卫
coverage
视
of
作为一
international
个
news. Phoenix
国
TV
际和中国受众之间的一个桥梁和窗
hopes
口
to。become a bridge between Chinese audience and international news. So we actually communicate a lot in Chinese. As mentioned by Liu Xin, the challenges brought by true information and false information, is it something that we feel the pressure? Of course. We are now moving from traditional media to convergence of a media. Each person is likely to become a publisher of news. We are now entering into a non-media age. That means the professionals, both individuals and institutions, are actually replaced by other individuals talking about fake news. In an age of technological progress, which caused upheavals in the media industry, even Trump's Twitters, actually, at least we have seen 2 fake accounts. So when we try to find out what President Trump said, we need to make sure whether the publisher, the releaser, is Trump himself. Second, regarding the spread of fake news, this is a temporary feature. In the long run, when the public are not interested in news or fake news, and then they are interested in the truth. So for traditional media professionals, we are not desperate. Of course, we face difficult situations. We actually make our living and do our profession, and our work has been grabbed away by the emerging trend of social media. I'm very happy to learn from the previous speaker, John Pullman. If we do not adhere to our traditional values, then we will be nothing. So we have heard so many questions, and Ms. Zhang has also showed some different opinions. First of all, let me briefly introduce Huanqiu.com, because we all know very well. Huanqiu.com is jointly run by the China Global Times Network as well as the People's Network. So that's why it's a combination of the two. On the one hand, it needs to have a comprehensive, truthful coverage of Chinese stories. On the other hand, it needs to convey the international news faithfully to the Chinese audience. So this is a double mission. We need to
verify the truth. We need to mobilize all sorts of resources.
Mobilize all of our resources and do double-checking for the sources of information. We have some partners as well. We hope that the news we release will be accurate. Thank you, Mr. Sun. Jessica, Huffington Post 实际上我也读了很多了，你们的声誉也是非常好。怎么样能够控制这个事实呢？就是尽量的去报道真实的情况。我觉得。
This is not the first time we find ourselves in this set of circumstances. You can call the post-truth era. So, following Watergate, that period was also, that term was used to describe that period as well. But what we have now is a unique set of challenges in which, social media creates this landscape where people can just read stories that confirm their biases, their pre-existing beliefs, and they're not necessarily seeking out news and information that challenges that. So what that's kind of created, though, is this atmosphere where media companies are rising to the challenge to, supersede and overcome those, doubts in credibility and issues like that. So we kind of have this belief that, there's this fierce competition among media outlets, and the readers are the winners because there's amazing work that's being produced. And I mean, just today, we're in a room full of journalists. We probably all read the Washington Post incident where there was a conservative group that was trying to basically launch a sting operation to reveal media bias in the Washington Post with somebody posing as a source, and the Washington Post basically stung back. And so I think that's a really encouraging example, a morale booster sort of during this time. And so for HuffPost specifically, we really sort of almost wrote the book, so to speak, on quick viral news, building a huge mass audience through aggregation. And so that was sort of our digital infancy, and now we have grown up, so to speak, and so we've got bureaus all over the world, and we've got reporters doing our own pieces as well as aggregation. But so, we've always maintained this, because we sort of wrote the book and it had all this scrutiny since the outset, we've always had to maintain a really high sense of integrity and ethics, and so, we continue to maintain that.
Thank you, Jessica. Jamie, your career spans the radio, news, foreign ministry, also dealing with information rights. Sometimes you have to be very critical as well. What is your experience? Are we facing a greater challenge today because of the social media?
Yes, definitely, and I'm glad we are convening this panel after that excellent speech by Jonathan Pullman from Reuters. There's a very old newsroom saying, and I've heard it said, that sometimes it helps or it's better to be second rather than first. And especially in this day and age with social media, with things that go viral, I think even more so, newsrooms have to have the courage, have to have the conviction to say, yes, sometimes it is better to be second. And that is something that I remind our newsroom on a daily basis. If you see what Jonathan was presenting just now, all the things that the newsroom goes to verify news, it takes time, it takes resources, and invariably, they will be second. And audiences must know that newsrooms such as ours take that time because we want to maintain that credibility and that trust. I mean, I'll give you a very simple example. It's a bit frivolous, but I think everyone saw that video of President Trump feeding the koi, right, when he was throwing the fish food into the pond. And everyone saw, including our newsroom, how that initial first videos of him doing that went viral. So you see it going viral, and our newsroom had a decision to make. Do we use that same video, or do we wait? Do we wait? And if you wait, you will be at a disadvantage by the time the full picture emerges. But we decided to wait. God bless my newsroom, they decided to wait. And I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes later, we eventually got the full video. And when we posted the full video on Facebook, our Facebook caption was quite simple. It just said, Shinzo Abe did it first. And we were heartened because you see the reactions thereafter. You see the reactions from every single person who watched that video, said, thank you, Channel News Asia. We now see the full picture, and this is what we need. And I mean, that is the kind of decision that we have to make every day. In this particular case, we suffered for it in the short term, in terms of the hits, in terms of the PVs, whatever it may be. But our belief is that if you keep at it in the long term, if you keep the picture looking ahead, that is what you need to maintain that credibility and that trust.
Yeah. Indeed, a very good example, because we also had that struggle. And we were almost posting using that video in our discussion, but we didn't have the time to use it. I'm happy that we didn't have the time to do it, because otherwise, the next day, looking back, it would have been a big joke. But you say, as a news channel, you have the luxury to say, let's wait a little bit. But for media, for the digital platform, CGTN's digital platform, you have to be there first, as fast as possible, right? Otherwise, somebody else will take that #1 position. So how do you deal with this dilemma, to be first and to be accurate?
I think it's always a hard question. To be first and to be accurate, you have to choose. We choose to be accurate and to be first. So
how do you do that?
Without sleep. There are different things that we encounter in our newsroom, especially when catching up with breaking news and reporting on the hot news. We call it politics news, social issues, and everything. And you need to take care of the fact-checking, double-checking with all the resources. You have to be very first to send it out, but you have to take care of your brand because you want people to trust you. Trust is the most precious thing now that we're facing, especially for the traditional media brands now, including CNN, BBC, all of ourselves, because as far as we know, according to the statistics, that most of millennials worldwide, they don't trust media in a way that they trust their friends, their social circles. That's very for us. So I think for us, we should think the other way around. I totally agree with my boss saying that we have to redefine what is truth. We have to redefine what is the facts. I'm sorry to say that, because according to the big data, when there's a small proportion, let's say 3,000 samples you have from a city, okay? And you get 3 million samples. That's totally different conclusions you will get from different samples of data. So that's one simple example, but the big data is far more complicated than that. And also, we talk about artificial intelligence. We talk about 360 immersive videos, and we are never closer to facts nowadays in this digital age with all the tools that you mentioned that we never used before, especially for investigative reporting. We can examine the data, open data. The world never been open before. But who defined the facts? Who we are working for? From the social media platforms, I always joking, but I'd be very serious to Twitter, Facebook, and Google, our partners, that they control us. They use this algorithm, control the content provider here sitting in this room, everybody. I become kind of angry that we are controlled by them. But I think it's hard. And you have to cater to the principles they sent for us. So I think that becomes sad reality.
Mr. Liu, you wanted to add something.
是的，我听到你最后的几句呢，我觉得这对于我们是一个问题。我觉得我们现在在这谈
Right now,
什
we
么
are
是
talking about why we are insisting the importance of truth. This should not be a question for people who work in the media. We are talking about one issue now. Where is the truth? What is truth? Especially for social media. I would like to give you one example about Donald Trump. There's an event on the Facebook. There was some embarrassment on Facebook, and also some measures were adopted to make apology, to show regret, to make promise to strengthen management. Such a platform in itself, it has this kind of characteristics. So this platform, well, we should not blame everything on Facebook. So that is how things are. Now we are in an era of post-truth. In the post-truth era, especially after Donald Trump took office, we have been talking about this concept of post-truth a lot. In the past, was the past an era of truth? So for many decades, like Mr. John Pullman in his speech, I actually admire Reuters for its effort to verify whether a helicopter is a Russian helicopter. They adopted a lot of technologies to verify that. But the problem is that how many people want to know that this Syrian helicopter belongs to Russia? How many people want to know that? In other words, in the past, the truth, the journalist, for example, at Phoenix TV, and we want to be there when things are happening. As a seasoned journalist, if you're at the forefront, at the frontier, what you see maybe just some fragment of truth or superficial truth or superficial fact. You may not know the whole truth or the backstory, the truth in the back. Another point is that in this new time age, we are talking about fact and truth. So there is relative truth. We have been working very hard to seek truth, but I think truth is relative. In the post-truth era, now we have the social media, and moving forward, I believe that there will be a kind of subjective truth, a new era of subjective truth. It means what you believe in is truth. What you don't believe is not true. About a fiction and facts, maybe more people prefer to believe in fiction. Many things happen because of imagination. Many technologies emerge because of imagination. So for our society, what kind of impact will this kind of circumstances have? Because a lot of people want to have truthful perception so that they can make decisions based on truthful information. I think we are in a terrible time and age. For the media, this is a chaotic era. We are living in this era. So now we are talking about shared future. That is the slogan for this forum. But I think this slogan should be changed to share our problems. Whether we can find solutions, we have to wait and see how things pan out. Now that with the technology advances, we still face similar problems and challenges. Now, I think the topic has become a little bit heavy. 其他的嘉宾有想法的话，也可以发表你们的看法的。
We're talking. I thought the Shinzo Abe example was really an excellent one because it sort of symbolizes this pitfall that is easy to fall into right now, I think, which is, social media, giving social media what they want. Like social media wants to laugh at Trump. And so that story about the koi, there was another one where Trump had said he had to sit next to Shinzo Abe's wife and she didn't speak English and it was miserable. And then there was this tweet that went viral that was pointing out, oh, she does speak English, so she was pretending not to in order to not have to talk to him. But nobody, everyone reported that, but didn't really confirm if she was able to speak English. So it's sort of like, wanting the story to fit this narrative, like giving social media what they want, but sort of, that highlights the need to, I think, adhere to the old journalism adage of, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and you probably need to double check it. So I think that I just wanted to go back to that. I thought that was a good example.
Yeah. What I took away from John's talk just now, I thought was interesting, is sometimes truth is boring compared to a fabricated story, right? When you have Shinzo Abe and Trump feeding the fish and everybody does what they're supposed to do, then what's the story? There's no news story. And for the people who want to attract attention, create traffic for whatever purpose, it's not useful. But the fact that they cut away Shinzo Abe's example to Trump, they created a lot of clickbait, let's say, eyeball attention. How do you make good content, truthful content, interesting? Is that the biggest opportunity and challenge for you?
First, I should say that life will find a way. I think for the facts, I think we don't narrow down that all the facts lies in the hands of us. And it lies in the people. Let's trust people. I think we have to admit that. Let's face it. So that's why I want to just... I think Phoenix, they make a very example of that. I'm a big fan of Phoenix apps, and they changed their algorithm and they changed their product principles at the very beginning of this year. And it used to be a traditional news delivery, but now you are kind of back up with you like a 今日头条, 东方头条. You all change the way that you cater to the users. And also Huffington Post changed again. Huffington Post changed the other way around. You start from social media, you start from a virus branding, but then you change to the traditional way with the news value plugging into it. I think it's because of the different trending both in China and outside China. I think for each brand, they choose the way they go, hunting for the facts or I'd rather say it's the value that our users want. It's the instinct that we could find for the niche market, or the instinct we could find for our users and followers and people. I think we have to change all our concept, all the logic of we doing things. I really think that it's hard to discuss which is really true or which is fake, because you never know. There is an elephant in the room. You never know which part you get it. But the part you get it, you truly believe is the facts, but it's never been 100% facts.
What about 环球.com?
我记得人民网
I remember that People's Net 15 years ago shot the film of a forum, and it has a subscriber base of tens of thousands, not very big, but it was a very influential program. To improve the credibility of the content of UGC, we set up a dedicated team to verify and manage the forum online. Now, we have a much larger user base for the WeChat, microblog. And the Facebook followers for the People's Net is over 43 million. So when we have such a huge coverage, we feel the heavier responsibility. We feel the mounting pressure. I share the feelings of Shirley. I agree with what I have heard just now. Social media today have generated a lot of fake news. But for media organizations who seek the truth, we should be more influential, not just the CGTN and the People's Net, and also Xinhua News Agency. Several days ago, I visited the Xinhua News Agency, and they have also built up a very large base of followers. So, on Twitter, that's 10 million followers. So, any other points you want to make?
Okay, Mr. Ho, yeah.
我呢，再回到这个事例。
After that fake news, my personal view actually is that larger concerns may not necessarily be fake news per se. I think we've seen fake news has been around since news has been around. The bigger concern for all of us actually is more unverified, uncontextualized, and incomplete information coming across as news. I think that's the challenge that all of us have to face. And that comes about, I think, when faced with, going back to the topic of this panel, how we deal with data, how we deal with the demands of PVs and hits and things like that. In that drives newsrooms sometimes towards data, towards hits as an end in itself, rather than the means towards an end. The means towards an end must be still, as far as possible, truth. I mean, of course, truth can never be 100% complete, but as far as possible, newsrooms have to do that. So that's one danger I see. The other danger I see, again, is something which feeds the need for hits and eyeballs is when it comes to editorializing, masquerading as news. I think when platforms write, when platforms appeal to audiences, subconsciously sometimes we need to take a step back and think about what we are conveying as news as opposed to views of that newsroom towards a particular audience that we're trying to convey to.
Well, it's very difficult. I think there's no news story that doesn't have a viewpoint. Do you agree with that? I mean, my experience is, you know, every journalist, as professional as they are, or she is or he is, when they go out and collect a story, they always come from a certain perspective. There is always a viewpoint in there. Mr. Ho?
Well, there is always a viewpoint, but if we see where the extremes go, if we look at the media landscape, for example, using the United States, where you have the media fragmented to the extent of polarization, where you have the Eastern and the Western establishment, and you have the rest of America in the middle. Worst case scenario, that's what happens when news views come across too strongly in appealing to particular audiences. So the rest of us who are maybe not in that position do have to make daily decisions not to go in that direction, to appeal to as wide an audience as we can, and not inject where we can. And when we do, we make it very clear. This is an op-ed, this is a commentary, this is an analysis. It's clear. But the link between that and hard news and presentation of fact needs to be maintained.
Yes. Yeah, last comments before we go into the Q&A, please.
I think it's not only driven by, the change is not driven by social media, but also by the high tech that we have. It's a subversive process. I regard it when every journalist went out to get news, I regard it as an all-out arm race. Traditional rules of engagement no longer apply. Trust me. I think the future, I can echo to my boss, Mr. Jiang Heping says, you matters most, that the future will reflect the individual input from hundreds of millions from them or you, instead of we or traditional journalism. I think in the future will be your media in millions of ways. So the views becomes a very individual thing. I think, and this varies accordingly. So I think that's very revolutionary, beyond what we can sense now. I think we always talk about the future, what media will go. I think I grab it with 5 key words, but that's too long to share here. But the main essence is that we have to be a value provider than a medium or media provider. That's my main opinion.
A value provider instead of a media provider. Very interesting contents. Let me open up the floor here. Anybody who would like to make a comment or ask a question, here is the opportunity. Anybody yet? Yes, there's this gentleman here, please. 可以递一下话筒吗？对，在中间。Please introduce yourself as well. 请介绍一下自己 briefly.
我用中文。
Let me use Chinese. I'm from Shanghai Observers Net. I'm Ji Zhongwei. Regarding the opinions on the post-truth era, I have the following views. In the era of post-truth, it doesn't mean there is no truth. Truth still exists. I agree with what Mr. Li said. Before, in the past, actually, there were also fake news. Truth is always there. The problem is how close we are to the truth. In the traditional media age, we were not further closer to the truth than we are now. Truth still exists there, but the standards, criteria have changed, and the paradigm has changed. With sufficient technology, you can find out the truth on the internet. I can say we are even closer to the truth today. So that's why I don't agree with the term of a post-truth era.
还有没有这个在座的各位有没有什么回应
？Observersnet is a site that I visit very often. We also need to provide some explanation about the news or interpretation. I agree with this opinion that in the past we also have the fake news. And it doesn't mean in the post-truth era we do not have truth. This is not true. So we need to express adequately truth and also to find out the truth and also to make people to believe in the truth.
Okay, second chance.
还没有。
一位红衣服的女士 and then I'll come over to you.
你好，我是 Storyco 的
I'm from Storyco. I'm an editor. Regarding the discussion on the traffic and the hits, as well as the position of the media organization, I have come up with a new idea. We need to adhere to our own values, and there is a kind of a mismatch between values and sometimes the traffic. The organization I represent is more engaged in social media. The trends, it's viral, and the UGC, which are popular. So we find that the metrics will focus not on views, but how much other people actually watching it for a longer time and continue to go back and watch it. So have you noticed that our metrics are also changing? So traffic or hits are not the criteria for judging our performance, but rather watch time, subscribers, and followers, or we can find out how many people are really trusting our stories. And this should be the criteria to judge whether we are a successful news team.
I want to share with one fact I was shared by the Facebook director when I just come right to this forum. He told me that there's an investigation they did online for Facebook that over 90% of the video views is just reaching out to 15 seconds. So any longer videos are not encouraged on Facebook as a mainstream social media platform worldwide. And for the I'd rather shorten into one rules that what I said is the traditional rules of engagement no longer apply, but there are ways of engagement do apply. One of it is the dialogue, what you mentioned at the previous forum. But the dialogue, let's redefine dialogue. The dialogue is not between professionals and not even between the fans with your media. It's between the fans itself. If we could create a platform for people to dialogue with each other, I think in the future you will win. That's how platform really means. So in that case, the algorithm behind all the social media platforms do play a very crucial way that they lead to the regulations that I call them play God. They control that where they can verify, where they can find the facts, where they could find engagement. But there are things that we don't know is who gave the algorithm the principle. We do discuss this when I visited Google last month. And I think that's one of the things we have to learn, because there's no answer yet. There's an open discussion about that now. It's ongoing processing. Thank you.
我来补充2句啊，我非常
I would like to add some comments.
cheerful with
我同意Shirley的说法。The internet, in addition to hit count, well, hit count actually was important about 10 years ago. Now it's more about fans and more about traffic, the online traffic, different channels and different social media and our own platforms and our full-blown media on Huanqiu.com. And on social media, and all of this can be regarded as a whole. We value traffic, that as a media, if we cannot guarantee our standards and quality and integrity, if the content you release will compromise your quality, and this in long term you compromise your traffic, you will lose traffic because of that. In the internet traffic era, we should give more priority to quality. 其他人想做一些补充吗？
I agree with her 100%. In any case, these metrics change every other month. Whether it's views, whether it's engagement, whether it's likes, whatever it is, it changes all the time, and newsrooms have to keep up. What doesn't change is trust and credibility. And when newsrooms, and I keep saying this, make decisions, that where I come from is that we have to use these metrics to help us guide our newsroom decisions, but our newsroom decisions cannot be driven by them. That is the key difference that I think we all need to maintain, or at least we do.
Okay, next question from this
下
gentleman
一个
here.
问题，另外一位先生想问一个问题。
再来，再换一下麦，OK。
Yusuf Omar from #OurStories. In many respects, journalism is a politics of truth, accountability, transparency. But when do we decide to take a stand? Do we take a stand against sexual abuse of women? Do we take a stand against smog in Beijing if the government are not doing enough? And if we do have a list of topics where we say, actually, we're not impartial, we are going to take a stand, who defines what that list is?
Mr. Liu, or later? You next, first you.
I think that's the ethnic of doing journalism, and it's a very traditional value. We call it political right, right? And you have not to abuse the law of each country, and also you have to abide by the God you trust. And besides that, additionally, I think there are 5 principles. One is what I call it steps. Okay, one is the story, the social currency. That's the distinguished value you apply to your users. That means when you want to show the stance on the hard news, what's the value in it? What's the relevance? And why people want to trust you and share with your friends your value. And I think use a concrete example is that...
Maybe go to the second point instead of using...
Yes, okay.
You have 5 points to make.
Yes, a trigger. Being the trigger to the users, to the platform, whatever you used. And then that trigger is going to the next step would be emotional. The emotional, I do have this learning that a lot of emotional is controversial to the traditional news value. When our reporters doing what I always call it bloody journalism, everything happens, it's war, right, and everything. But on social media, people want to share positive news, want to share positive stories that make them life cheerful. I think that's one of the things. And also, fourth is 2 Ps. One is practical values, useful for people. And the other is public good, what you mentioned. What is public good? I think everybody shared a common ground. I don't need to mention that. So let's do steps together.
Wow, very, very practical, very detailed as well. Mr. Liu, when you are 吕先生，在您决定对哪些新闻事情
When you decide to comment on some news event, what are your criteria? The gentleman asked a very specific question. I would like to give you some examples. When I visited People's News, so on the Central Kitchen and this program, for example, there's a lot of hot news, and the hot news will be displayed on this platform. I asked them a question about on a certain day, in a certain year, on a specific day, can you tell me the news that attracted the most followers? What is the news? So there's a piece of news about a young man, and there's a story about this young man. I think as a specialist or a professional, I agree with Sue. So we are also a provider of values. We are also a provider of truth, but we have to admit that right now people are very subjective. They subjectively look for truthful news and information. So when you said that although you want to provide positive and truthful news to people, that people want something exciting and news. What you think exciting and truthful may be different than what other people think is exciting and truthful. It's very hard to say. And how do you make a choice? How do you choose? Well, you are very persistent. Well, is it a trade secret? Well, for myself, I think because of my age, my experience, and my professionalism, I think I should choose valuable things. For example, something that can tell people about social development direction, macro matters, and socially meaningful matters. And entertainment can be considered meaningful. if there's not a lot of response on the internet, will you still use the same attitude? I myself, I will stand by my own principles and opinions. I am myself. And how many fans and followers I have? I think if I am in this position, I should stick with my own opinions. So I will do something in a similar way like John Pullman talked about. And entertainment should not be the pursuit of a journalist. But our society is very cruel. We have to rethink whether it is because we are too old to be different, or to be in this era. Maybe this is an era for the next generation. But however, there are many things that are constant that have not changed in the past 1,000 years. Mr. Sun, what's your take on this topic? I would like to say 8 words in Chinese, which have been used a lot. These 8 Chinese words, I think, are really worth sharing. We should always remember our initial aspirations and remember our mission. Our initial aspirations and mission, what are they? As a journalist, we should stand by them. 在网上观看这个会议的观众，实际上在19大。
Never forget your original aspirations so that you will achieve the goals you set out for. I think we have maybe time for one last question, one last comment, question. There is a gentleman over. If you can make it really quick, maybe we can squeeze in one more question. 好，请尽量简短，好吗？谢谢。
我们可以增加一个问题的机会。I'm with Dino Singh Sixtong. We produce an English product. My name is Zhang Jun. I have a few comments. First, I don't agree that we are in the post-truth age, and I think we are closer to truth in this age. Why I'm saying this? It is because that, well, to be further away from truth, maybe in terms of fake news, we have to look at the proportion of fake news. It's hard for you to evaluate the proportion of fake news. Now we are in the age of information explosion. So media is sad about this, but the general public is mostly quite happy in this age. The second the second point I would like to make is that rumors spread much faster. Meanwhile, our response to countering the rumors is also very rapid. So we have to actually run a race against fake news. For social advances and technology advances, we should embrace them. If we don't embrace them,
非常感谢. I see many people agree with you. Yes, there's a young gentleman over there, please.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. So we like to hold. I'm Shay. I'm from the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong. We like to hold all our publications up as bastions of truth. But from the chart in John from Reuters' presentation earlier, that's not what the public actually thinks. My question is, what can we do to change that? In particular to Mr. Ho from Channel News Asia, because I used to work at the Straits Times, I know what the public thinks of mainstream publications in Singapore. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Ho, go ahead, please.
Thanks. I think there really, sadly, I don't see any alternative towards, besides just keeping at what we as journalists know as the basic of what our jobs entail, right? Factual, contextual, and as far as possible, convey that in a way that is as accessible as possible to our audience. Yes, we may find ways in which we want to do it differently, and this is where different platforms come in. Social media platforms, ad messaging platforms, all these are vehicles towards our audience. But I don't think there's any alternative to what, besides just doing what we know we have to do best. If anything, I think we need to move away from terminologies, to be frank, such as post-truth, such as fake news, because fake news is not news, so that term should not exist, towards things like alternative facts. All these sexy terminologies actually quite dilute what we try to do. And I think so long as we keep to basics and try to move our audiences in the right direction, I think that's the least that we can do.
Okay, may I take that as maybe your last concluding statement here? Jessica, you haven't said much, unfortunately. Would you like to say something to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. In the U.S., we're sort of still going through this post-mortem after the election where, you know, admittedly, the mainstream media didn't take Trump seriously. You know, HuffPost, it's a little different because we are transparently liberal. And so, you know, to the question earlier, sometimes lines do get blurred between news and causes, especially when, you know, as the subject of this panel, emotion can sometimes gain more traction than facts. But, you know, and in our newsroom, we do sort of unofficially have these issues that, you know, unequivocally, like climate change is undeniably real, you know. People should be able to marry who they want, things like that. And so, you know, the thing with HuffPost is that our reporting is always straight and balanced, but we attack an issue from a multi-pronged approach. So it's reporting, it's opinion, it's a second-day feature, it's a viral piece. So it's usually like the opinion stuff that goes the most viral and gains the most traction. But that being said, you know, I think that we did go a little far, and we actually apologized. You know, during the election period, we put we put all Trump stories in our entertainment section, which was sort of this.
It's not too late to bring it
back.
It's never too late to change your mistakes.
I mean, it was sort of a gimmick, and you know, it wasn't my decision, obviously. But that's you know, we admitted that was sort of crossing the line. But you know, I think it's been sort of like this process of learning as you go, and the media is kind of owning up to its mistakes. And I think one of the biggest things that we're realizing is that you know, when there's the lack of trust and accountability and that kind of thing is often a symptom of readers feeling like we aren't listening to them, we don't have their interests at heart, you know, that we're the elite coastal media, all of these issues that, you know, I think there's a tendency to get defensive, but there's also truth behind it. And so I think the truth is sort of, you know, doing what you can to reach out to, you know, as many new audiences as possible.
Yeah, indeed. It's a question that we all have to think. We're all thinking about, I believe, on a daily basis in order to provide better quality service and product to our audience. So we ran out of time, but many thanks to all our panelists. Zhang Shilei, Deputy Director of CGTN Digital, Lu Ningsi, Editor-in-Chief of Phoenix Satellite Television, Shan Cheng Biao, General Manager of Huanqiu.com, Jessica Preuss, Executive Editor of Asian Voices of Huffington Post, and Jamie Ho, Chief Editor of Digital News of Channel News Asia. I hope we'll do a better job in the future competing with the fake news to see who is faster. Many thanks to all our audience members and to all those who have been watching us on the social media. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Liu Xin, for moderating this panel, and also to our panelists. Thank you for speak your mind and seek truth as a result, we hope. Thank you. 谢谢各位. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I did feel a little bit reminiscence in the air earlier about so-called the old golden days of the media. But one of the things that we need to face, and I guess we need to face with optimism, is things are changing fast. That means opportunities and challenges both at the same time. I remember they say the best time to test discipline is when discipline is in absence. Earlier this morning, controller of CGTN, Mr. Jiang, was talking about survive and thrive. And I wondered whether that is the way. So once again, I want to thank our moderator and also panelists for this discussion. 谢谢，再次感谢, very thought-provoking. And you know what? We are coming to the time for a tea break or a coffee break. I know you have a lot of food for thoughts, so mingle it up with some coffee and tea would help us probably to digest it better. So let's come back. 我们点半回来. Okay. Our organizer is telling us 3:30. We got about 10 to 15 minutes. So we are coming back and hear more, some of the interesting opinions. 谢谢大家，一会儿见。
Hi there, you're watching CGTN live streaming. I'm He Weiwei in Hainan province, and today CGTN, my company, is holding a global media forum here, and over 100 guests from dozens of media organizations from around the world. They are gathering here in Hainan province, and just in the meeting hall behind me, they gather to discuss issues related to media convergence and the challenges facing our TV industry. And just now, 6 guests from medias, including Huffington Post and Phoenix TV, and also CGTN Digital, they gather to discuss issues related to fake news. How does the media stand the ground under pressure of TRP, which is targets rating point, circulation, and website hits? And now is the tea break time. So this is the main venue to host this big event, and a lot of guests are here from around the globe. So let's see if we can talk to some of the guests to share their perspective with us. Okay, now here I have my special guest here, Ms. Yan Ni. She's from China's State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film, and TV. So thank you, Ms. Yan Ni. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
And Ms. Yan Ni is responsible for Chinese media's international cooperation, right? So, and today our theme is a shared future. So a shared future cannot be without China. So can you tell us and how, what efforts have been made and what achievements have been made in terms of our telling Chinese stories to our international audience?
Well, yeah, I do believe China's TV program and films are one of the best carriers of telling China's story to the outside world. Over the years, great efforts have been done in this regard, and I think we have achieved a lot of remarkable progress. For example, taking Africa as an example, nowadays more and more African viewers can have a daily access to the dubbed or subtitled Chinese TV dramas and films, and this is a daily broadcasting, and it's broadcasted over the mainstream African broadcasters, and also in our neighboring countries. I mean, CGTN's international channels have been landed for many years, and apart from that, CCTV have also launched the localized channels like Hi Indo in Indonesia, Hi Cambo in Cambodia. And I think we have received very positive feedbacks from the local viewers, because I think China's radio and TV it's mainly about telling stories. It's mainly about cultural exchanges and dialogues between different civilizations, and it's mainly about people-to-people exchanges.
Thank you for your information. That's quite a fruitful cooperation. And I think today a lot of media people, they're coming from media organizations from countries, especially along the Belt and Road Initiative. So today we are here to talk about the media convergence. So in terms of this topic, and next, in the near future, do we have any plan to cooperate with any other media organizations from global?
Yes, yes. As you said, the media convergence is one of the most prominent feature of nowadays media landscape. I think that's the reason we are gathered here today, to sit together and come out with more constructive strategic plans for future cooperation. I think talking to the future China's international communication, I do believe that we need to keep to be open-minded and to explore more cooperation with our global partners. For example, we need to develop more co-production, and this will be not only appealing to the Chinese audience, but I think there will be catering to the outside world as well. And apart from that, I think we need to catch the younger generation of our global market. We need to make sure that we always innovate our content and innovate the way we're telling the story, make sure that our content are available at multiple and platforms, and it's very flexibly to be received by the younger generation. I do think it's very important.
It's also a very good idea, and thank you, Ms. Yan from China State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film, and TV. Thank you for your time. Thank you. And so Ms. Yan just mentioned that, for example, a lot of our audience in Africa now have access to our Chinese-made TV programs, and that is what I want to have a brief introduction about. And we know that with CGTN, we are a multilingual and multi-platform news organization. Actually, what we have done is far beyond the concept of a television. And also, we have 3 different broadcasting centers. Beijing is the headquarters, and we also have 2 other broadcasting centers. One is in Africa, in Nairobi actually, and the other one is in America and in Washington, D.C. So with these broadcast centers, we provide 24 hours programs, 7 days a week, and to try to tell our foreign audience what a real China is like. And if you want to know more about the stories, please watch our programs on CGTN. Okay, let's go this way. And now it's the tea break time. This is the venue of the CGTN Global Media Summit, which opens this morning. And we have heard different guests delivering keynote speeches on issues related to media convergence and also our challenges and so on. So can I talk to this lady? Hi lady, I'm a reporter from CGTN. We're doing a live streaming report here. Do I have the honor to have a little interview with you?
No.
Okay, you're busy?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
sorry.
you. Thank you. So let's go outside to see if we can talk to some other guests. And just to give you a brief introduction of our CGTN, as I mentioned, we are a multilingual news production organization. And actually, the English channel, which I am working at, is the flagship channel. And besides, we have news reporting in 4 other languages, including Russian, Spanish, Arabic, French. And this, including English and these 4 languages, including Chinese, these are the 6 working languages of the United Nations. And this is the booth of our CGTN. And so this TV screen is the live broadcasting program. It's the weather forecast, and I think usually that becomes the end of the rolling news. And here on the booth, there are some brochures of our CGTN. For example, let's take a look. These are our overseas correspondents. Maybe you can recognize some of them if you often see our programs. And also, these are our anchors. And Liu Xin, which just hosted the panel that just finished a few minutes ago, and Tian Wei is also the host of this opening ceremony today. And also, these are our anchors from this CGTN America and CGTN Africa. And I think some of them are also invited to our global forum today. And these are our news programs. The World Today, the China 24, Asia Today, all very familiar to me. Okay. And just to remind you, if you're a newcomer, we are CGTN. I'm He Weiwei in Hainan province. CGTN is here holding a global media summit. We're doing a live streaming report for you. And I will be back in a short break. Please stay tuned.
Correspondents throughout China and around the world. With its official model of See the Difference, CGTN is committed to reporting global news from a Chinese perspective and telling China's stories for a global audience. CGTN, See the Difference. CGTN, China Global Television Network, is a multi-language and multi-platform media grouping.
You are watching CGTN.
Its 6 principal TV channels are CGTN English, Spanish, French, Arabic, Russian, and CGTN Documentary, China's first state-level English documentary channel. It also includes CGTN Digital and CCTV Plus, which delivers visual news footage to other media organizations worldwide. As the nucleus of the new organization, CGTN English provides live news and current affairs programming 24 hours a day from broadcast centers in Beijing, Washington, D.C., and Nairobi.
You're watching CGTN.
You're watching CGTN. You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
CGTN is utilizing media convergence to carry out its mission. The strategy calls for using television as the driving force to power and expand mobile and digital presence. Its Media Convergence Center combines multi-format news gathering and multi-platform resource sharing, as well as multiple channel and distribution outlets. CGTN is also making strides and broadening its reach through advancements in social media, video streaming, live programming, and mobile access.
We're watching the link.
CGTN boasts an extensive global reporting.
Hi there, you're watching CGTN live streaming again. I am He Weiwei in Hainan province. We are here to cover the Global Media Forum, and with me is another distinguished guest. Sir, please give us a brief introduction of yourself.
I'm Andrej Gustincic. I work for Slovenian National Television. It's Radio Television Slovenia. I work in the exchange, so I deal with incoming material from other centers all the time.
So thank you for coming. You have been, suffering for a very long distance to come to our grand event. And today, actually, we have invited over 100 guests like you from around the globe here. And we are here to discuss the cooperation between our media organization and especially from the journalism. So what is your perspective on this topic?
Well, I think the idea of journalists from different organizations and different nations working together is an excellent one because ultimately we're all working in the same cause. I mean, many years ago I covered the wars in Yugoslavia, and their journalists from rival companies worked together as a sort of pool. So I think bringing journalists together, introducing us to each other and having us work together is a very positive thing.
And so far, does your company have any cooperation projects with China? Any media organization? But maybe in the future, we're looking forward to that.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to that, and this has been a very exciting meeting so far.
So your coming has been a very good beginning of this cooperation, I think. And in the future, and maybe next year, we'll invite you here again and to share your perspective on our cooperation. And thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day. Okay, thank you. I'll give you my card later. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. And just to remind you, this Global Media Forum is held by CGTN. It's the first time that CGTN is holding such a grand event. So on my hand is a schedule of this forum. And actually this summit just opened this morning, and some guests have delivered keynote speech. And the first one is our CGTN controller, Zhang Heping. He delivered a keynote speech on the topic of upgrade of new mainstream media. And also, he talked about his perspective on how we can build an integrated media. That's quite interesting. That's 5 I's, the letter I. That is innovative, invigorated, interconnected, inclusive, and interactive. So with these 5 I's, this is our target, and hopefully we can fulfill our aims, which is to tell the story of China. There is a booth about, this is also our CCTV Plus booth, is also a co-host of this event. So our game is right on the wall, tell the story of China. And actually I want to talk a little more about that. Our CGTN, we have correspondents from all around the world, and since our launching on December 31st, 2016, which is the very last day of 2016, we have been launching for less than 1 year, but so far we have got 380 million global audience from over 170 countries. And actually, this year, when it comes to very big events in China, for example, the annual 2 sessions, for example, our G20 summit, our BRICS summit, we have invited our journalists from the other 2 broadcast centers in America and Africa to come to China. And I think that is the first time that we took these journalists to the very grassroots places to China. For example, we took them to impoverished villages, and we brought them to remote areas to see how the locals' lives are, and also we made them opportunities to experience to work as a deliveryman, because we know that China is seeing very fast growth in delivery. And I think the idea behind that is we are inviting foreign journalists here to use their perspective to tell Chinese stories. So we invite these journalists to China. to give them a chance that they may never have been taken to some very up on the ground places, so they can experience what the real China is, and with their special perspective, and they will join us to tell the story of China. So after the short tea break, guests are coming back to their seats. Some of them are still talking to each other. And later, after this short break, there will be another keynote speech about where will 5G take us. It's about the technical issues. Okay, let's go this way. Because we are doing the live streaming using 4G technology, but the upcoming 5G, I think, will bring great changes to our industry, and also the speed that we got on the internet will be much faster, and that will maybe reshape our industry. And let's see if it's time to get back to seat. Okay, our host Tian Wei is coming.
Thank you for coming back. Let's proceed with our afternoon session. Earlier, we've had a lot of debates about content, about stories, ethics, and journalism. But there is an absence of an important voice, technology. As you may know, from 3G to 4G, a lot of things have changed. Devices changed, ideas changed, products changed, fates of journalists have changed. So what about now? 5G, what is that likely to bring to us? Or is it already happening? To answer those questions, I'm honored to introduce to the stage Mr. Zhu Fusheng, who is the CTO of Wireless Products Division of ZTE. 让我们请上中兴 5G 总工朱福生先生，有请。He's going to help us understand where will 5G take us.
谢谢主持人，请允许我用中文发言。
Please allow me to speak in Chinese. My topic, where 5G will take media. As mentioned by the moderator, 5G was launched in 2012. We have been using it for 5 years. Current mobile phones have been using 4G network. With the 4G network, the media communication can integrate words, short videos, and images. However, on some new circumstances, the current network and devices may run into difficulties. For instance, when we look at this image, this was taken in Iceland about polar light. When such a gorgeous picture appears, when the green light goes up in the sky, how gorgeous it is. This picture actually does not show 1% of the beauty. So how can we present the beauty? We have 3D and panoramic collection of information, but the current devices and the network are not strong enough to support such a presentation. So we hope the incoming 5G will bring about a new way of communication. For the wireless communication, it's playing an increasingly important role. Let's look back a little bit. For the communication process, we have image collection and the presentation and the view of the images. We can see different trends in the collection of images. In the past, the cameras are wired, but now the cameras are wireless. The mic is also wireless. During the tea break, a lot of people are doing the live broadcast through the mobile phones. So we have diversified means and the wireless development of the image collection. For the viewing of the images, in the past we rely on the TV and the computer. Now, increasingly, we watch it through the mobile terminals, such as mobile phones. This is also a big trend. For this collection, processing, and the viewing network is essential. In the past, we rely on the satellite and also the wires and optic fibers, but now we rely on the wireless communication.
So we now rely heavily on a wireless network. Now, because now we have a heavy dependence and reliance on wireless network. So let's look at the new requirements for the video broadcasting and the bandwidth. We need to have a high bandwidth. The 4K, if you want to broadcast 4K, and then you need to have a 15 megabyte bps and also up to 120 MB per second for 8K. And for VR and 2K VR requires 15 bps and 4K 50 megabytes and 8K about 300 megabytes. And for the retinal level 16K, and you may need 1.6 gig. So the requirements become higher and higher. Now there's a new trend about VR. VR may cause dizziness. So the head movement and also if the delay is less than 20 milliseconds, and then the person will not suffer dizziness. And now we have higher resolution and also for coding or for different kind of rendering, and there will be a lot of calculation requirement. So I think this poses pressure and higher requirement. Now, what is 5G anyway? Now, we have chosen 5 parameters to talk about the peak speed. For 4G, maybe 100 megabyte bps, and for 5G, the 1 gig bps, and the user experience wherever you are, the lowest speed you can have. In the past, it was 1 to 2 megabytes, but now we have to reach 100 megabyte bps for 5G, whether you are in your car or outdoor, and you should be able to experience 100 megabyte bps for VR, 4K, and the requirements are higher, and also connectivity speed and also the delay should be controlled under 1 millisecond, and also to avoid dizziness, and then the delay should be less than 20 milliseconds. So meanwhile, 5G has an important change. If you use a cell phone, you use cell phone to send message, and now you can use cell phones to do many things. In the past, you have to use multiple devices for multiple purposes, but for 5G, we will be able to have some horizontal integration. A lot of the resources can be integrated and combined within one system, and to fulfill the needs of VR or other vehicle telematics or IoT, and you can actually mobilize your resources and make some arrangement and achieve your purposes. In the past, you had some functional devices. For example, a device was used for sending text message, and now 5G can create a better functional cell phone, you only need to install different kind of app, and then the platform at the bottom should be the same. We can develop different kind of resources. We can mobilize different resources, and you can do a lot of things conveniently. Meanwhile, the wireless network has made a lot of upgrading. For example, the density for connectivity. And in the morning, when there were a lot of people, if you wanted to send some images through WeChat, you might feel that there was a congestion of the network. But for 5G, we will be able to overcome such problems, whether in this meeting room or in the Olympic Games. Even if there are 80,000 people using the network, we can still transfer video content. But for now, maybe just to send out images, it will be difficult if there are too many people around using the same network. Okay, for 5G technologies have a lot of merits. And what kind of changes will 5G bring to new media? Our equipment have transformed from wired equipment to wireless equipment. But not all of the equipment can do live broadcast, and there will be a kind of a center for collecting information and content. So the camera can use the 5G network, and wherever you are, the high definition images or videos can be transferred back to the news center. And now drones, with the support of 5G in the future, will be able to do live broadcasting. But right now, drones are used for recording only. They cannot do the live broadcasting yet. So for the VR video collecting or gathering, this will be a popular area for us to do research and development. We can collect information and content more conveniently. We can also share beautiful photos about beautiful scenery and landscape around the world using video. Just now I noticed a lot of people use their cell phone to make videos. But in the future, you can use your cell phone to make high-definition video and upload to the network or other kind of online platform. In terms of coverage, the cellular network now still has some downside on the airplane or on the high-speed chain, and you may have spotty signal for the network. But now, in the future, we will have coverage that can cover everywhere, wherever you are. Meanwhile, we will strengthen some new features. We hope that we can enhance what you do. In 2016, VR was underestimated. Actually, VR experienced a low point. The helmet of VR and the PC are very expensive. The cost was more than 10,000. So such high cost pose limitation on the developers. If we can lower the cost, if we put the calculation in the back, or maybe put the calculation on the cloud server, and then the devices can be used for video. But there's another problem that needs to be resolved. There will be latency, and there will be some uncontrollable factors. So we can use some calculations. We can do some coding and rendering. We can enhance the central functions. The central functions should be put on the edge, and we will provide services to the users. Know that with edge computing, we can improve the VR devices. We have VR games and also first-person social interactions. And there are different kinds of programs that have already achieved some success or tremendous success. For this kind of network, we can also offer some AR, augmented reality. For example, for the blind people, I can make some videos. The videos can be processed by AI, and then the blind people can use this device to know someone is coming towards her or him, and also and then the blind person can use this kind of device to walk around, to interact with people, because the device can even tell the blind person the facial expression of the other person. And also for interviews, and if you want to interview someone, and then we can provide information about this person, and then we can offer you some warnings or alerts to send you some background information. We can also use this kind of technology to display beautiful images, and we can use VR to help photojournalists. And now the photojournalists, now they can upload the video content. We can also transform other industries such as the medical industry and the drones. 5G now have some new technologies and new product offerings. So such new changes can bring about positive and tremendous changes in our society. We hope that 5G technologies can also help media. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Chu, for your speech. I would like to know that where will that day...
Okay. 2020, we're going to see many of the things Mr. Zhu just talked about on the stage. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, sir, for bringing us all those updates. After a keynote speech, we are preparing for another discussion. I see the moderator already standing up. That's a very proactive attitude, I should say. Christoph, please come up to the stage and let's introduce the guests together. Fantastic. We are going to talk about the lose-lose or win-win. We always love the latter, but will be that the reality, the former. So we're going to answer those questions about the relationship between media and platforms. Helping us to understand better with moderator Christoph Gleitgen. I hope I pronounced your name right, well. German, yes. Senior Vice President of Global Sales and Business Development with Watch It. Please have a seat, sir. And also we would like to invite to the stage all the panelists that join Christoph. Ms. Gao Jin, Chief Editor at 爱奇艺总编辑高锦女士. Wonderful to see you, lady. And Mr. Jeremy Kang, EVP New Media and CEO of TMNet at Telecom Malaysia, please, sir. Mr. Yang Huayun, Media Strategy Director at Sina News, 新浪网新闻策划中心总监杨华云先生。有请 Mr. Leo Lee, General Manager of Strategic Management Department and Marketing Management Center at NetEase. 有请网易传媒营销管理中心总经理李淼。同时也让我们有请 last but certainly not least, Yusuf Omar, co-founder of #OurStory. 有请。All right. I'll give this microphone solemnly to you, Christoph, so that you can start the discussion.
Thank you so much. I hope all of our panelists have a microphone as well. That seems to be the case, so let's kick off. It's already been a long day, and I have been promised tonight will be an evening of outstanding on entertainment, so let's earn that, and let's bring this party home. When I spoke to one of my contacts in London about the Global Media Forum and the VMF, as a gentleman from Bauer Media, big European publisher, he said to me when I mentioned the topic, wow, that's amazing. It's one of those topics that never stops to be of interest, and hopefully our discussion today will be of interest to you. I'm confident that our panelists will be able to provide you with unique insight given their diverse experience in Asian and Western media. But first, let's look at the issues quickly. What's going on? Primarily from a Western perspective, only weeks after Google and Facebook announced record earnings, some of the biggest players in digital media industry were shown to be struggling to hit their revenue projections, struggling with growth targets in general, struggling to make ends meet. And just as an example, it could have been BuzzFeed and Vice who missed their revenue targets. Mashable was sold well below the original projection or valuation of approximately $250 million, ultimately for $50 million. Oath, we had a representative from the Huffington Post, unfortunately announced further layoffs. Condé Nast is laying off further staff. The turmoil and rate of change is absolutely breathtaking. And of course, it's not only the digital content providers, it's also some of the tech companies. We heard lots of discussion about fake news. We heard about political advertisement, misinformation, sometimes concerns over market dominance. And at least in Europe and in the US, we might now have reached a stage where political or regulatory response may indeed be imminent. And of course, there are signs of cooperation. I'd be very interested to find out whether that's happening in China as well, whether it's the Facebook journalism project, whether it's Google's digital news initiative. I am hearing, and it's also my experience, that Google in particular is starting to listen and to engage quite a bit more. But the central problem, of course, remains. And that is, if you look at Facebook, you look at Google, you look at YouTube, and that is essentially 70% of digital advertisement revenue right there. If you add players like Alibaba, like Baidu, like Tencent, and maybe those next in line like Sina and Sohu, there's indeed not very much left for everyone else. And that is not changing, at least not in the short term. And what about China? I have always been, whenever I come here, so impressed by how dynamic a market this is, in particular when it comes to internet video. And whether it is iQIYI, whether it is Tencent Video, whether it is Alibaba, whether it is Taotiao, the rate of adoption, the rate of change, and the scale is absolutely breathtaking. And I'd be very interested to find out whether you're facing the same issues or some very different ones. And so where does all of this leave us? At a recent event, Noel Curran, the newly appointed Director General of the EBU, called for a totally new relationship between Google, Facebook, other significant social media and video sharing platforms, and the news media. So what is going to happen? Will this herald a new golden age of journalism? Will media and the platforms continue to treat each other as frenemies, sometimes friends, sometimes not so much? Are we looking at different models where it is about the merger of the platform and the content provider, primarily to enable user data to flow more freely? Or is it all for naught? Is it, as the reputable German online news publisher Spiegel Online said, are we witnessing the struggle for survival of the last of the dinosaurs? And here to discuss that with me is a distinguished panel of guests and renowned subject matter experts, and let me quickly introduce them. Right next to me is Ms. Gao Jin. She is editor-in-chief, recently appointed, congratulations, of online video platform iQIYI. I hope I'm saying that correctly. She has lots and lots of experience and lots of success in the media industry. She's worked as a producer, she's worked as an executive producer, a center director at Phoenix TV, the Travel Channel, and Shenzhen Reality TV, and she's also participated in the development of a great number of formats, actually too many to list, but it's very impressive. And next to Ms. Gao is Jeremy Kung. He joins us from Malaysia, where he's been Chief Executive Officer of TMNet of Telekom Malaysia since 2008. He's also the Executive Vice President of New Media since 2010. He's looking back at over 20 years of industry experience. He's worked at J. Walter Thompson, at Star TV, at PCCW, so certainly someone well qualified to enrich us with his opinions. Next to Jeremy is Mr. Yang. He's the Media Strategy Director of Sina News, and I was very intrigued. He said he worked as a features director at Oriental Morning Post and a senior journalist at the Beijing News. And you said you cared about news, you cared about journalism in your old job, and that hasn't changed. So let's talk about that as well. Next to him, Leo Lee. He's the General Manager of Strategic Management and marketing at NetEase. He's very much in charge of NetEase's marketing system, as well as mobile marketing, industry planning and development. NetEase is a fascinating company. We talked, and you said both a platform and a brand, so very much looking forward to your insight. And finally, Yusuf Omar. Yusuf is an award-winning journalist and co-founder of #OurStories. He's a TEDx speaker. He's a former CNN journalist or senior social media reporter for Snapchat. He worked for the Hindustan Times. He told me he covered the war in Syria as a foreign correspondent with just his mobile phone. And the company he recently co-founded, #OurStory, is focusing on empowering mobile video storytelling communities around the world, creating shows in every language. I would actually also invite the audience to participate. I'm very much interested in your views, but let's get things started. And who do we start with? Why don't we start with Mr. Han. You mentioned you worked as a journalist in publishing. You're now at Sina News. What has changed? What has remained the same?
是这样的，就是从一个
from a press journalist to a managing position for a commercial channel. Actually, I have been through a lot of struggles. I actually would love to join the previous panel on the post-truth era. Maybe I'm not well adapted to this mobile internet age. But I have to say, for commercial platforms or newspaper or other traditional media, we face the common challenges of a mobile connectivity age. My general opinion is that if we also refer back to the previous panel, if we define our information to serious news, maybe we can draw some conclusion. If we look at it in an idealistic way, journalism and journalists, editors, including truth, are important and valuable. If we look at it in reality, probably many years later, the last media organization can apply for the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage status. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
非常感谢。我刚才了解。
Is I guess like someone working in news and media should be very much under time pressure and would actually have to leave this panel very soon. So why don't we move to you right away? One of the things I am interested in is iQIYI is investing both in own production, very much like Netflix and Amazon, but you also want to make to ensure that you have a platform that is attractive to other content providers. So how do you balance those needs? How do you make sure that both your own content production, but also that of your contributors and partners is featured prominently on your platform?
非常高兴今天能够代表爱奇艺来到三亚跟大家分享和交流一下。非常抱歉，我可能讲完就要走了，因为我是当天的飞机往返北京。
I have to catch my flight shortly after my remarks, so I came here late. Anyway, iQIYI is a platform and also a media organization. We have multiple natures and attributes. We produce technical products. We are also a media organization. I don't see any conflicts between the two. We produce content and we also provide a platform. This is a result of many reasons. We see the homogeneity of our content. Our website, how can we survive? We should find out our own unique content. What is unique? Only with our own products, because our own teams understand what the followers need most. I have also listened attentively to the previous panel, and I have also discussed with experts here. I like to raise the following points. In today's China, we have 550 million followers in China. What do they hate? What do they hate? They hate to be educated. So for the same event, how should we present the news to them? For Chinese netizens, they actually live a hard life. In school, they are taught by the teachers. In home, they are taught by their parents. After marriage, they are taught by their wives or by their mother-in-law. So when they come to the internet, they want to have a kind of an equal status. They don't need to be taught what they need to watch. So in such a situation, when we operate our platform, we should create such an acceptable communication platform. Actually, in summer, we produced a program that is, we have a in China. Actually, this is a kind of a niche culture. We have promoted it as a popular brand. Actually, this is an approach adopted by McDonald's and other players. So, for the media, we should think about our target audience. What is their favorite style? When we run this platform, we need to consider how we can provide opportunities for the content providers, how to make their products to be discovered by the viewers. We need to identify the quality content to be staged on our platform. We also need to differentiate with other platforms and also to achieve a win-win result with the content providers. So be it a media organization or a platform, we need to embrace a win-win strategy and to take into account the interest of our partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I understand correctly, what you're saying is that you don't see an actual conflict between own production and being a good host and partner to other content providers, because you're saying ultimately it is all about the user, making sure that the user is entertained, and that should be your guiding principle. That's interesting. Thank you very much for those comments. Leo Lee, question to you. In our discussion just prior to the panel, you said NetEase is very much in both camps. It is both a platform, but it's also very much a content and a news content provider. If you could just describe your situation, talk about some of the challenges and some of the issues that arise.
我们理解是这样子，就是首先呢，媒体和平台，可能在我们看来，它最终还是会走向一个融合的过程。它其实会有一个比较激烈的磨合期，但它本身并不是矛盾的。那这个跟比如说互联网去那个时候去代替电视或者是影响报纸是有区别的，因为实际上不是一个媒体形态的改变，而是到底是内容为王还是渠道为王的一个讨论。那实际上最终内容和渠道其实都是缺一不可的。那这是第一点。第二点呢是，其实不光是网易，我相信包括 BAT 在内，那实际上没有任何一个中国大的互联网公司会只有平台或者只有内容。那基本上如果你平台做大了，你就必须要有你特色的内容要来补充。那比如说爱奇艺，那实际上是百度这个体系里面非常重要的一个内容的提供者。那网易也是。那我们其实一方面有我们的平台型的业务，同时也有我们内容型的业务。那包括阿里、包括腾讯，其实都是这样子。那这个其实是整个中国的互联网生态决定的。所以呢，可能它彼此最终会走向一个融合。那说到网易的话，其实也很简单。那第一个是，其实早期。
earlier days, NetEase is a group that is dedicated to be a content provider. And in the following years, we developed the platform. In the past, we have original content. Now, in addition to original content, we also have a lot of other contents. So with the platform, we have a more efficiency and a better distribution. With the original content, we can consolidate our own features. So I think this is a feature to be shared by all the companies in China to have this kind of convergence. But they can, let's say, decide which way to go further, as a media or as a platform.
Thanks so much for that. Jeremy, maybe moving next to you. In a previous career, I spent many years with Reuters, and one of the things I learned there is to always be careful to make assumptions and never to be too sure about yourself. Just because you know how a media market operates in one country doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the case somewhere else. And I'd be the first to admit, I don't know very much about the media market and the telco market in Malaysia. Could you enlighten us? Is it more like the Western model? Is it more like a Chinese model? Is it somewhere in between? Do you face all the same topics and issues, or is it very different?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to CGTN for the invitations. Let me introduce my company and myself. My name is Jeremy. One wife, 2 kids. In case anybody is interested, I don't know. Malaysia, we are not part of Singapore or Thailand. We are located in between Singapore and Thailand. Telecom Malaysia is basically a telecom operator. We provide both fixed lines and mobile. So it's very interesting in this panel today. I see mostly platforms and content providers. We are also a service providers. Although sometimes I say I work for Telecom Malaysia, but a lot of times I say I work for the YouTube and Facebook of the world, because 80% of our traffic is basically from the OTTs providers. We provide apart from telecom services, we also provide a platform where we are the biggest IPTV platform in Malaysia. Malaysia is with a population of about 32 million people, 7 million households, with 3 big mobile operators and 2 main fixed line operators. Today, I think the discussion on the win-win or lose-lose, because we are also a service providers, and what is happening around the world, not just in China, but around the world, where a lot of content companies are also merging, but also they are going directly to the customers. This creates a dilemma for us as a service providers who have invested billions. I mean, the CTO from ZTE just mentioned the amount of capex, the billions of dollars that we invested every year to continue to improve and provide a better service for the community and customer in general. But content providers and the likes are going straight directly to the users. And in Malaysia, where there is no net neutrality, if you don't work with us, I will throttle you. Just kidding. But the dilemma is interesting, right? We have a situation where I think we can all work together, and the ecosystem is there for us to be able to coexist. There are players, big players, who insist on going on their own, and this will create an issue wherever you go. So a quick brief of what we do in Malaysia.
Thank you so much. And maybe if I could just follow up, you are seeing a future where people can exist, coexist, work together. Can you elaborate a little bit more? If you look out into the future, what does that coexistence look like?
Sorry, I thought you were talking this. I think we operate a IPTV platform where we are partners with 110 channels, where we cooperate with the likes of HBO of the world, China News Asia, etc. And we are able to coexist because we believe, and they believe, that they can leverage our resources against what they're trying to offer to the customers. No one could provide the better services than what we at Telecom Malaysia that we can provide to the Malaysian public with the amount and resources and investment that we put in both CapEx as well as people. At the end of the day, the customers, there's only one customers, and they rely on us to provide that kind of services. Just imagine when they have problem, do they go to Google to complain, or do they come to Telecom Malaysia to complain? So at the end of the day, I think we have established an ecosystem where we all can work and coexist. And I think should be the only formula going forward, unless the Google of the world want to be G Telecom, which they can be.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Yusuf, coming to you, I think no matter which way we turn it, you're not a platform, I think. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Because I think a lot of people are still not familiar with #OurStories. What is the company all about? John Pullman talked about the risks associated with user-generated content. I'm assuming you're not ignorant of those risks, but you probably see more of the opportunity.
Yeah, no, not at all. I am a mojo. A mojo is a mobile journalist. That means I shoot, I edit, and I produce using my mobile phone. And I've been doing this for about a decade now. I wanted to be a foreign correspondent, and all of the newsrooms are cutting back on a budget, but I could go with a phone and tell stories. #OurStories is a response to the mainstream traditional media having missed Trump, having missed Brexit, having missed most of the biggest stories of our time because they failed to listen to real people and real voices on the ground. So we're going out and finding communities that are underserved, underrepresented, and we're training communities to tell stories using their mobile phones, and then we're packaging those stories into shows. It really is grassroots citizen journalism. As John said this morning, as we heard from Reuters, as we heard from AP, user-generated content is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. We just heard a presentation about 5G. We really are in the golden age of journalism. There has never been a better time to be a journalist. We have more technology, more platforms. I can do a 360 video. I can do a Facebook Live. I can tweet. I can do all of these things at the same time. It's an amazing time. But at the same time, there's immense challenges. Do we dedicate all of our energy to Facebook? Do we put it onto a different platform? I believe, as somebody who's not building a platform, I want to focus all my time and all of my energy on what we actually are good at, and that's telling stories. I'm going to let the technology companies do what they're good at, and that's building amazing platforms. But having said that, I believe we have to be platform agnostic. We can't put all of our eggs in one basket, because if you do, then the success of your company is entirely dependent on a different platform and on their. We've just heard earlier today, CCTV's digital team have spoken about being held ransom, being held hostage by platforms and algorithms of which we have absolutely no control. The thing is, we've done this to ourselves. We've become addicted to the reach of platforms over the last decade. It's almost like we're at a buffet and we're like eating all of this free food, which is the global reach. And then suddenly they're like, actually, we're going to start charging you for that reach. If you're not going to be building platforms, you've got to be willing to pay for that reach in order to get those services. But the fact of the matter is, none of us here are going to be able to develop virtual reality tools, live streaming tools, augmented reality tools as quickly and as fast as these Silicon Valley fail-fast companies. So I believe we should stick to what we're good at, and that's telling stories.
Fabulous. And if I can just follow up, you said you want to be platform agnostic, but despite that, right now you're primarily on Facebook. What are you finding there that you're currently not finding on any of the other platforms? Why Facebook? Is there a plan B? Is there a next stage? Why don't you elaborate on that?
Fundamentally, I'm most interested in the next billion people to come online. They're coming from India, they're coming from China, they're coming from Malaysia, Indonesia. Many, many of these markets, their first taste of the World Wide Web is going to be via Facebook. It's their interaction. I'm fascinated with Facebook because it's a platform that is increasingly putting the camera at the center of the technology. For the last few years, we've been engaging with technology using the QWERTY keyboard, using typing. We are now seeing a generation of people from this next billion who may not be able to read or may not be able to write, and they will be engaging with our technologies entirely using their cameras. I fundamentally believe we are at this incredible intersection. We are about to hit a perfect storm. As standalone products, live video as a streaming product hasn't been a golden goose. VR hasn't been a golden goose. But we are reaching a stage where all of these are colliding, and we're starting to see products like Facebook Spaces. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, where you are in a 360 virtual, augmented, live social experience. when we hit this intersection, the entire space is going to move very, very quickly. And history has always given us building blocks of all of these new technologies. And it's up to us now to start mastering these technologies, because once it does, it's going to race ahead of us.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. A question to Sina News. You spoke about your commitment to journalism, the importance of journalism, some of the challenges associated with it. Would someone like Yusuf and #OurStories find a good partner in you? How could you see working with someone who is committed to mobile journalism, who wants to embrace new technology, who wants to tell and give others a voice to tell their stories? Is that a cooperation you could envision?
For this question, in the context of China information industry, it's about platform and content provider and the relationship between the two. For Sina, in the past, we mostly work together with some media to generate a kind of partnership related to content. Starting from last year, Sina had a new platform for self-media, our own media, or a platform for user-generated content can be uploaded to the platform. There's a lot of high-quality content from the users. Currently, in China, this is a very common practice. We can see that in recent years, there are a lot of platforms, a few platforms that have invested maybe billions of money, capital, not necessarily capital, it can be in the form of different kind of fees to offer a kind of subsidy for content. Ultimately, how much of the money is given to the content generator, we are not sure about that. We don't know that. For a platform, in the context of partnership, whether it is a kind of lose-lose relationship or win-win relationship, actually, for the original news producers, so we have not won. They have not won. In the future, is it possible for us to create a kind of win-win scenario? Of course, there's such a possibility for us to create a win-win for all stakeholders. Now, when the platform, in the past, we purchased copyright only, but now we have different profit-sharing mechanism for the content generators. Serious news has value. If the value is stronger for this platform, and then the profit sharing for this platform, it may be skewed, and then in other words, they can get more benefits because of the platform. But in the future, whether we can create this kind of scenario or a new set of circumstances, my feeling is that I'm not very optimistic about the future. Why? Because we all know that news, it's hard to catch news. It's really hard to cash in on news. For contents that help people kill time, for a platform, this kind of content can attract more traffic and users. So that is why a lot of resources will be invested in this kind of content that can bring profits or revenues more easily. instead of investing in news that does not generate
那些
as much
能够带来更多的流量的
money.
内容，它的生产成本
The money generating content actually it has a very low
这些不
production
能
cost.
带来很
For the
很高的
news
流量
that cannot bring a lot of traffic or
影响的
revenues or
它
impact
的生产成
serious
本又是
news,
非常
the
高
cost
的。
for producing serious news is very high.
从资本现实利益的角度
From
来讲，
a
如果
practical
是我，
viewpoint or
当
from
然
the
也会
perspective
选
of
择让我
capital,
可以以较低的
I
成本
myself may
给我带
also
来
choose the
最
low
大
cost
收益的内容，
content that can bring me maximum profit and revenues instead of choosing
可能要让我支付更高的
content
成
that
本，给我的
may
收
require
益
me to
并
pay a higher price but will not
所以
bring
未来
a
我
lot of
们的
profit.
新闻业
So in the future, the news industry,
究竟能够和
whether the
平
news
台之间
industry,
是否
the
可以
relationship
形
with
成一个
platforms,
平衡的
whether there will be a
良
kind
性
of
的
balanced
共赢
relationship.
的关系。我个人不是很乐观。
I'm not very
我补充
optimistic.
一下，就是
Let me make
我
some
今
additional
天在
remarks
这儿
today.
呢，讲的是作为一个
I'm speaking
互联网媒体的新闻从业者
As a
观
practitioner
点，
in the
不
journalism,
代表
we
不代表
I
新
do
闻
not
公司。
represent Sina.com.
I respectfully disagree with a few
我
of these points.
这个不太同意刚才
Yes,
观
we
点。
can do
我
low
们
quality
可以
content
做一些比较这个吸引眼球的，但是说这个成本比较低的，这个有什么价值呢？很多人都可以做。我半个月的话就可以做很多东西。一方面就是说挣钱，但是说这不是这种高水平的这种新闻业，在这样一个时代呢，那么顾客的话，他实际上是看重品质的。
Yeah, I just want to comment. I mean, in the previous panel, we talked about post-truth, right? Now, why are the younger people or the younger generation not resorting to watching news? Because a lot of, and I was so controversial here, because a lot of the broadcasters and all represent the government mouthpiece. And that's where the young people doesn't want to pay attention to. Now, I agree with you. So the quality in the news must come from the actual journalism that one practices professionally. What is not your own opinion, but a neutral platform where users can share news in a much proper way.
Yeah, and I think in order to do that, the biggest challenge for traditional news organizations is this shift. At the moment, we have fundamentally centralized news operations. We have this very strict hierarchy of create a piece of content here, send it up to this sub-editor, send it up to this editor, and eventually it makes it online. But if we are going to succeed in this space that you talk about and resonate with young audiences, it has to be a lot more real. It needs to be a lot more raw. And that involves moving from a centralized to a distributed content environment and eventually a decentralized workspace altogether.
But having said that, you have also put your content on Facebook,
sure,
right? Rather than establishing your own. And again, you're doing this for the commercial purposes, right?
I think 2.0 would be looking at the blockchain, would be looking at the idea that we could directly distribute, we could have peer-to-peer payments from our audience directly to us. But absolutely, in the meantime, you're in a distributed environment.
You made the point about how expensive it is to produce news, and you expect some express some pessimism or skepticism in terms of future developments. But isn't that also an opportunity for future cooperation? Because in this audience, we have a lot of people who have a lot of experience with producing news and producing that news in a very high quality. I'm looking at Michael Wegner from ARD, German public broadcaster. How do you see today and maybe looking into the future the role between a public broadcaster and these tech giants, whether it be Facebook or Google? We could get a microphone to Michael, please.
Yeah, thanks, Christoph. I think it's we are on the one hand in a very different situation than you guys, or many of you guys are, because we are publicly financed. So we don't need to earn the money from the content that we do. But I think for us, it's not about earning the money. It is about knowing where we put our content. And if we put it out on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube and all those channels, which we do, then we will be reliant on the algorithms that are behind that. And those algorithms we can't influence. That is something that is brought on us, and if Facebook, as they just did, experiment, with some new styles, oh, your whole output is a lot lower than it used to be before. So for us, it's important to use those platforms on the one hand, but on the other hand, really to produce content in a way that it's valid on our website, that is valid on our application that we developed. That is where we want the people to come. This is for us where the content is best viewed. This is where we want to make sure that people know they find the content that they have paid for through their license fees.
Very interesting input. From my own experience, again, we have the representative from the Huffington Post. I was told recently that because of a tweak in the algorithm, Huffington Post in France in a single month apparently lost 70% of its audience. I can very much understand that that is a massive challenge. Michael, maybe a follow-up question, and I would also like to invite CGTN for their contribution. What do the platforms need to do to become a better, a more reliable, and maybe a more valuable partner to brands like ARD?
Goes back to the things that I said earlier this morning. It's all about dialogue, communication. We've only seen lately a willingness to get into a dialogue. Again, I don't want to bash one of them, but just taking the example of Facebook now, what we see is that they are changing things. They are not talking to us. They are not taking us seriously as partners. And that's the point where we cannot rely on them. That's the problem for us. We see now, as a reaction to that, a changing need. We just saw them in Amsterdam 2 weeks ago. You were there as well. You were there as well. So for the first time, we have a feeling, at least, they are listening to us. And if they will change it, they promise it. But do I trust them over the past experience that we have had with them? I'm not sure.
Still very much a frenemy. And maybe if a representative of CGTN would care to comment. We heard earlier today there's experimentation with Taotiao. I think it was you very impressively shared some of your data in terms of Google and Facebook. What do you see at your relationship with those platforms as today and looking forward? What are you hoping for?
Is that me? Okay. In CGTN's case, it's a little bit different from CNN and RT and New York Times, because I know that our CNN counterpart and also New York Times, they already have the plan to withdraw their original content from Facebook, from YouTube, because they think that 50% of the split of the revenue from that platform doesn't contribute or doesn't pay off their cost of their good original journalism. But for CGTN, we are very new in this field. The brand just started at the very beginning of this year. So we need traffic. So we need the platform to help us to deliver, to distribute. We regard Facebook, YouTube, Google, and also Twitter, Instagram as our digital distribution, which exactly what Washington Post have done now. But we care about our copyright as well. We care about our original content as well. So in that case, I think that's why this global summit for the traditional media outlets is so important. We discussed this yesterday with the executive director, Daniel, of Economist, about the lose and win-win for the platform and media. We think that as a content provider, and we have to stick to our original content, and we have let the platform realize that we contribute more than they think, and we value ourselves more than they give the value that they have the final say for the prices. So in that case, we are at the same level. I'm sorry for iQIYI and also for Sina Weibo, for all the platforms. Please respect content value created by the journalism here. Be respectful. That's my view.
Thank you very, very much for the candid comments. From the reaction in the audience, I assume that there is a lot of support for those positions. Would the gentleman representing the platforms, Leo, would you care to comment on that?
我觉得是一正一反啊，就是反向的是什么呢？我觉得可能大家
The negative side is that we worry about the content. Maybe we do not perceive it correctly. Probably the problems are not caused by the platform, but rather the shifting attention of the audience over the content. For instance, the media and content actually attracting an increasingly younger generation. They actually have a shifting interest, and the platform is a more efficient way to satisfy the need of the younger people. So that's why platform companies in China and in overseas market can develop very quickly, because these audience do not pay much attention to the serious news. Even with the emergence of the platforms, they won't pay much attention to the serious news. So this is one trend I want to talk about. The other thing is that maybe we are worried. China is the same as the rest of the world. Eventually, we are moving towards consumption upgrading. We also need to upgrade our content. Probably, at the current stage, the audience are more interested in the entertainment. But as they grow older, as they can filter through more information, and then they will develop a new concepts about the content, and they will become more interested in the serious news. This is a stage for us to go through. So I think we should have a valid platform and the valid companies and content providers. They have a space. They have their footing in the market. So this is not kind of a contradictory relationship between the two. 好的，新浪的话，新浪这边这个杨先生，您是怎么看的？ I seem to be taken away by Mr. Lee's question.
So the question was
So CGTN.
Taking more seriously, being mindful of how valuable the contribution of some of these content providers are. What can Sina do to be a good partner and become a better partner?
伙伴呢？是这个问题，跟这个内容提供商。
新浪可能和其他的公司不太一样。
Sina is somewhat different from other companies.
平台资讯平台上，新浪一直
Sina
还是一个科技公司。
does not position itself as a high-tech company, but rather as a media company. In an age of mobile connectivity, with the emergence of an increasing number of platforms, Sina.com is not as dominant as in the past. However, it has adhered to its media attributes. So, old users of Sina feel like staying with Sina. Might be the reason, because we have adhered to our original positioning. We actually side with the media organizations when there is a breaking news. We hope to report the content most accurately to the user in a real-time manner. And what we emphasize, value most, is still the content provider as partners.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite our audience. Are there questions in the audience? Are there comments? Are there points you would like to make? Yes, the lady over there, please. And if you could please introduce yourself.
I'm with CGTN, and I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Omar. Just now you mentioned that the trending of this new media platform is the content are more sort of the production is decentralized. I'm not sure whether it should be upside down or from the bottom to the in which way that you can deliver your message, because we had this discussion saying that in the traditional media organizations, usually we have a very strong centralized department, and somebody, the headquarters, will tell you what you're going to do. And in the new media platform, maybe every editors and every writers, they can propose their ideas and they can offer their contents. So for a news organization like CGTN, we are a public service. So any suggestions on that? Do you think that the decentralized model would work for us? Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Great question. Thank you so much for asking. So take social media teams within traditional news organizations. Generally, you have your sports, your business, your weather, and then you've got a social media team, which report to your online team. I would encourage us to say, why don't we have a social media newsroom where everybody is empowered, where within your business team you have somebody who has access to your social media accounts and can make the decision to go live. In my company, we train communities how to tell stories with their phones. We are moving away from the centralized idea of having one account with 10 million followers. I'm more interested in having 1,000 accounts with 100 followers on each, a much more fragmented, decentralized approach. So I will have a group of Syrian refugees that I'm training to tell stories with their phones. They will have their own groups, they will have their own page, and they will produce their own shows. And that will feed into a greater channel. So yeah, breaking it down into much, much more niche subject matters, much more niche social media groups, and giving autonomy to people within your organization. On top of that, we see a landscape now where you can go directly from your phone to publish. You no longer need to have this series of Zs in your workflow. But yet we still bring this broadcast legacy, this newspaper legacy workflows into the social media landscape. We need to radically change that. Of course, then the question becomes, how do we have trust? I can't have an intern with going onto the CCTV account and saying whatever they like. I think we need to take a traffic light approach to our journalism. Not all stories are the same, so why do we keep treating them the same? If you guys were reporting on this right now, why not give the person access to go live to the Facebook account? There's not much that's going to go wrong. If you're reporting on a minister who's being caught in Beijing in a brothel, maybe that's a red light. Maybe we need to slow down and reintroduce those checks and balances. But I'm saying that we need to fundamentally change the way we treat stories, we need to change the way we treat social media platforms, and we need to change the way we grant access to people to make those decisions. And if we do that, we're going to foster real innovation. We're going to find people that are live streaming experts in places that we would have never imagined.
Thank you so much. Jeremy, you wanted to comment about a different issue.
Yeah, I just want to comment on the word that we haven't been using. It's the word piracy. We produce content of our own as well in Malaysia, mainly to cater to the Malay community and Malay segments, because the Chinese and Indian content are more easily available as compared to Malay. And the amount of piracy that's still happening in our industry is quite alarming. I think as an industry, we all can collaborate and work together to, I don't think we can eliminate it completely, But I think we can work towards a much more, limited and controlled piracy around in the region. And this will be very helpful for us to continue to produce more and better content in the future.
Thank you so much. I have a feeling we're only just at the very beginning of this discussion. Unfortunately, our time is up, and I did promise our organizers I would bring us home on time. But maybe what a great opportunity to continue the conversation tonight over maybe a beer, some good food, and hopefully around the pool or by the beach. Thank you so much to my panelists. It's been really enlightening. One of the things I take away is there's a lot more nuance, there's a lot more topics that need to be discussed. It's not black and white, and it's certainly very different from country to country. So from that perspective, thank you so much, again, for your insight, for your contributions. Thank you to the audience, and thank you for your very kind and frank contributions. Thank you, CGTN, and let's finish this event.
Thank you so much, our panelists, and also Christoph. That's a very tough issue to work on, but I guess all of you breathe deep and give the answers that is coming from your heart. So I want to thank you for that. It's wonderful to have different opinions. I'm a global debate moderator, so every night I'm thinking about how should I let these ladies and gentlemen to debate about issues rather than all going with the same tone and the same voice. And we haven't seen that on the stage. So it's a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much. But I guess a lot of questions that have left with this discussion and the earlier discussions and debates, that is how to see a shared future. I guess we're going to answer those questions furthermore tomorrow with more workshops and discussions of case studies. But one of the things I want to remind all of us, me included, that is, you don't want to just look at the past, the present, because you might miss the future. Not just the past, not just the present, but the future. That's the shared future we're talking about. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for that. And I promised you earlier for another round of lucky draw, and I'm going to keep that promise. What is it?